How wonderful. Thank you, Mandy, for that important message. And I would like to acknowledge the people of the Woiwurrung and Burrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations on whose unceded lands I am on today. And I would like to respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders past, present and emerging. Well, it is now my pleasure to introduce you to the Honourable Alan Tudge, MP, Minister for Education and Youth. The Minister will provide our opening address.
To Coldrake and other TEXA commissioners, to the Vice-Chancellors on the line, as well as the 900 other participants of this conference. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words at the very beginning of the conference today. But in the same breath, can I say a very big thank you to you, Peter, to you and your team for the work which you have done over the last 12 to 18 months during this pandemic, which has truly been extraordinary. And I think particularly about the assistance which you have provided to institutions to go to online learning, setting up the new integrity unit particularly to crack down on some of those commercial cheating providers, obviously introducing and overseeing the introduction of the new provider category standards, which incorporated or included the first new university in many, many years. So you've done so much, and I really thank you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you in the months ahead. My main message today, though, to those listening, is that we are very much in the COVID recovery phase. And that means, as much as humanly possible, we want to see universities back to as close to normal as we can. The biggest indicator of the fact that we're in the post-pandemic recovery phase is the fact that international students will be able to return to Australia from the 1st of December this year, which, as you know, we announced earlier this week. Big news, and I know that will be welcomed by the sector and welcomed by the 160,000 students who are presently offshore who want to return to Australia or want to start their course early next year. On top of that, though, I'm announcing today, which you may have seen in the papers, that we're putting in place some additional measures and some additional visa flexibility to help accelerate the return of international students. Now, those specific measures include extending the waiving of some of the regulatory fees, such as the TEXA fees or the CRICOS fees and the TPS levy, as well as we'll be extending the fee help loan fee exemption for another 12 months. And on top of that, rolling out for a further year those innovation grants, which are particularly oriented to the English language providers. So all of that is really going to help with the acceleration of the return of international students. Then Alex Hawke has been announcing today as well a couple of important new visa policy changes to again fulfill that objective of accelerating the return. One being to ensure that no one's disadvantaged with their post-study work rights by being offshore. And so we'll extend those provisions. But the second and important one as well is that we'll be extending the post-study work rights from 2 years to 3 years for those students who are doing a master's by coursework. And I think that will have a good impact as well to encourage more students to go down that pathway. So good news for international students, the borders are opened and we've put in place these additional measures which will hopefully encourage the acceleration of those students to return to Australia and certainly get next year off to a cracking start. I suppose in the same breath and in that same theme of wanting to be back as much as normal as possible, we certainly want to see our campuses back open next year and stay open for those students who signed up to have face-to-face learning. That's so important. The expectations are there, and I know that you'll be seeking to deliver that. Finally, I wanted to say something about the research agenda. And last night, the Prime Minister announced the first policy announcement of ours on our research commercialisation agenda, which we've been working on together for the last 12 months and being advised by an expert advisory panel as well. And you'll see that policy, which is in the newspapers today, about the trailblazing universities, which really is setting up to fund to the tune of $50 to $60 million a university or a cluster of universities to be a trailblazer in one of our national priority areas and to very much focus on research commercialisation in that priority area. So there's some conditions attached to that, which you'll see in the guidelines. But we really want to see some great bids on this. I'm confident that they will be coming forward, and we want those universities to be the showcases and the exemplars for what can be done in that research commercialisation space. And then we'll have further announcements in the weeks ahead in a similar vein. Let me finish up by just saying a very big thank you to all of you on the line today. It's been a tough year and a half, but the worst is behind us. And I just want to thank you for your persistence. Thank you to particularly the university leadership for working so closely with me and my office and my department as we've got through this. And I'm very much looking forward to having a bright new year where our universities start to get back to normal. Thanks very much for having me.